Hello, this is Victor Dobrin.
And I'm Cheryl Cook.
Welcome to our podcast.
Okay, you're talking about right where the cursor is right now.
Correct.
Okay.
So, yes, by state statute is that indeed water utility which is not in the same jurisdiction of the same municipality or county. Let's say if Charlotte County provides to Sarasota County, they can provide the neighboring communities with water, but they will be governed by this state statute. And Northport is connected to Peace River, water,
Yes.
so to Charlotte
Water
County.
Authority, yes.
Yeah, in case of emergency, that's a good thing. But the agreement once set, so the state statute allows you between 0 and 50%. As indicated here, the Northport practice is 15, and the states allows, as I said, up to 50. Now, uh, knowing that all the infrastructure here, the water treatment and the reclaimed water and the potable water are built the same mechanism. Assess people, impact fees, and contribution from developer for in exchange for other benefits to the developer is going to be carried out till all the district is developed. I personally know of a district, it's called Coral Springs Improvement District. It's about half the size, but it's on north of Miami. And I know the chairman of that district right now, which is actually now a truly unit of local government. People elected are not, elected by the landowner, but by the people who live there and own property.
Right.
So
Briefly, tell us the makeup of the West Villages Improvement District Board.
right now, we have the homeowners who have a representative, and because I choose not to run for that position, Mr. Meisel is the representative of the homeowner of all the developments. I live in a Gran Paradiso, which has 1,935 units. Island Walk, it's bigger than that. It's over 2,000. But this is ever growing. So all the people in all developments have only one representative. The other four are elected, and they all are on the payroll of Natami, which is the biggest private builder in Canada, but they own all the land. They purchased the land in 2016, I believe.
They purchased, Madame actually came in when Rhonda and I were in office, and they purchased that section of Thomas Ranch she's talked about, but I think in the meantime, after that, didn't they purchase more of the West Villages, now Welland Park land?
They bought $89 million. There was about 8,000 acres that they bought, because by that time, Gran Paradiso Island Walk, about 4,000 acres were already bought by other sub-developers, not the master developers. So they bought more than 8,000 acres for less than $90 million.
Okay, and sorry I interrupted you, and it's really crucial we get this information.
Correct, and again, West Villages is about 8,000 acres in Northport, and the rest is in unincorporated. It's another interesting topic.
Yes.
Because that's why the developer don't want to pay more taxes, more impact fees. Impacts their pockets. That's why they don't want Sarasota County.
We're going to have that discussion about impact fees, because that is intriguing. So let's get.
But just I want to mention to you about the water. So that Coral Springs Independent District has retained their water and sewer plant, and they are providing the lowest cost water and sewer. Half of the rates we pay today here for the city, they pay for their water and sewer, because they hire an outside company to operate those facilities, so they reap the benefits for keeping those operated by themselves. Now again, if the annexation will ever happen, it's up to the people, because again, when Mr. Fletcher was asked who's going to vote and said the courts will decide, that's not true. The courts only will apply the law. And the state statute clearly state that only the people in the land which is supposed to be de-annexed will vote in that referendum.
And
As long as the law it stays, they said. But you know, last year they tried to change the law,
Right.
and I don't want to go there. But
Right.
it was technically two lawyers which were traced to the developer.
Right.
So again, getting back to this, if that's going to happen, if people will vote, which is a constitutional right, that the water and sewer could be transferred to either Inglewood Water District or the Sarasota County to operate it. And both of those utilities have lower water rates as of today.
Oh no, you're kidding.
So it would be lower. So this is a scare tactic here. But again, I'm not here to say one way or another, but we have to obey. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I want only the truth. But if you try to tell people this is the truth and you come up with things which are untrue, how can you sustain your cause to influence people to vote against the annexation?
I mean,
that has to be going deep to the core. They have to find another way to keep the city together, not calling Legacy and Welland Park. They should not even divide nominally, and they should not use plain lies. Rather come with what is good for staying together.
so I'm trying to find here on the screen. Here it is. Legacy Northport is Northport, and they're separating Legacy Northport
Well, yeah,
from Welland Park.
like they are the Earth and we are the Moon, or something like that. So,
You're getting
you
into
can't-
yoga.
no, but there's not a message in unifying things, and I have met wonderful people. The city has wonderful neighborhoods, and all the people deserve the best. What again, people think that it was the just saving on taxes. No, it's not only that what started. It's the continuous neglect of their fiduciary duty and the interest to make the city sustainable in the long range. Because right now we are flooded with our coffers because of the big growth we have. Lots of tax revenues, even if the millage rate doesn't increase because of the growth, will be flooded. But once this stops, you technically hit the wall. It's like a train hitting the wall, and then there is no new growth to come when this saturates the land, and then people who will be here in 15 years, they will have to face dramatic cost tax increases, because to support such a huge government, because this year, fiscal year, that consume all the $5 million additional which they have received in taxes, and they spend it all. So that's not the right thing to do, and that should be answered as questions. People have asked, how are you preparing if a downturn comes? And those are uncomfortable questions, but that's what they should answer, because that's what the people in this the annexation may want to hear, that they know what the next step would be, not to go and assess them even more in case of a downturn.
And they're not going to just hear it from Jerome Fletcher, and they're not going to just hear it from the 5 people elected. They're going to hear facts from the people who live here too, like you and the other people. You're going to hear facts during this whole process at some point. And that's just my point of view from living in the city. But this is not my fight.
Correct, and I'm not here. I am not promoting the annexation in front of the people, because I understand the benefits of the whole community working together. However, the best way to do that is to provide why the city needs Welland Park, and then respect the call for responsibility and taking the right steps for the future, sustainable future of the city by restraining expansion of certain things that the government doesn't need.
And that brings us to the next question. And of course, if you could, please also include questions from the audience as well as what Mr. Fletcher said, because I only have this document and I was gone by this point out of this gathering. And the next part is myth. The city is fiscally irresponsible and spends emergency funds to balance its budget.
Yeah, so again, the government has the power to impose of us any taxes. That's, there is a limit in the state statute, but technically they can increase. They cannot increase over a certain percentage, but there is still room. I think in Florida it's up to 10%, if I'm not mistaken. But the truth is that the growth which happened here, and mainly coming from, well, in what I would say West Villages, also, as we mentioned along the conversation, the empty lots that will be still there for some time, provided a good stream of revenue. And the value of assessed value have increased. So the city technically didn't default it. So that's a positive for the city. I don't want to deny that. So that's a truth. So I want to recognize what's the truth. But at the same time, when I hear that trickle down certain answer like, oh, for the water you'll be charged up to 150% more. And that was wrong because, as I said, the state statute says 50% you can overcharge. But when you answer, and maybe there was a misspoken answer, but that's what the people remain with. Oh, did you hear? They will be charged over 150%. But as I said, the problem I have seen was the budgets along my involvement in a few years, being 6 years, is that the commission doesn't get it, that they have the responsibility to set a tone. What I observe, it's always the administration comes with all this, increased budgets because they are not told what the strategy should be. And the commission doesn't do anything till the last moment. And some of the commissioners go and complain there in the last meeting of the adoption of the budget, but then they raise the hand and approve it.
Yes.
And that's kind of ludicrous,
Right.
So don't say that you are against and then vote for, or why do you have to go that far to the last meeting? Why don't you do the attempt? Set a tone in March of each year, saying you have to look the perspective for this year. We should come within these limits, and tell me why do I need this if you come with some other proposal. But that's I understand it's not an easy and direct let's say process, but that's the most important responsibility, the fiduciary duty of the city. And if they cannot keep that, then everything falls at the seams.
But there is, and I'm going to self-promote briefly. If you look on my website, cherylcook.org, I have the public documents, and you look into the backgrounds of these individuals. It's under the drop-down bar blueprint, and it's who they are. Here's their public documents. I'm wondering if some of them even have any concept of budgeting. If you look at their, and I'm not talking about personals. I'm saying these are the people that were elected to office. Look at their personal choices. Look at their personal investment history. How do you possibly think that they would change because they're in office using other people's money?
Well, it's very true that we are who we are, correct?
Right.
And we cannot split personalities. So what I think that they should always have in mind when they vote for any project, what is in the best interest of the people?
Right.
because we have young families, we have retirees on fixed income. And I've encountered lots of people who struggle to, with a couple of jobs, 3 jobs, and working hard with the housing cost increase. It's difficult.
Yes.
It's very difficult. So everything boils down to think fiscal conservancy. If this is not done with that in mind, then, spending like there is no tomorrow is going to create big problems for the future generation. In my generation, the city will encounter the limit of growth when the train will hit the wall, that the government cannot be sustained without increases in taxes. So what was that one time, increase of 30% proposed, it might be necessary in the future, realistically. So necessary to sustain the same level of government. So the better path is not to expand the government to get to that, because people's lives are affected. We have firefighters, we have all kind of support essential for the community. But if you march it, the growth in a acceptable manner, then you don't hit a wall in the future, because every life, every family matters. So that's, and unfortunately, I don't see that transpiring in the way the decisions are reached, specifically in the budgeting process.
Well, what did Mr. Fletcher say? And I'm not picking on him. He was the one that was the speaker. He's listed on the agenda. He's got all the documents and he's got all the staff. What did he say in particular about this item? The city is, that this is a myth, that the city is fiscally irresponsible and spends emergency funds to balance its budget. What did he say about that?
Well, that technically happened in 2019. He was not here, and at that time, the city manager was spending about $200,000 on the city manager department. Now we are spending $500,000, or $500,000. So just in 4 years to go from that to that, it's a big increase. And if you tell me that that's fiscally responsible, I don't think so. Spending that way. But getting to him, he doesn't, I'm not accusing Mr. Fletcher because he's new, but he should actually read the history, what happened at that time, because it's exactly the truth, not what is written on the paper. At that time, what they did to balance was actually to increase our taxes only with 13%, yeah,
in 1 year.
In 1 year versus the proposed 30, because people were protesting and there was a vocal opposition at the city hall. At that time, actually, they took the money from the emergency fund, which we have the emergency fund to prevent us in natural huge disaster, or a big recession where everything collapses, Those are not to be touched to balance yearly budgets. So that's the way they balance the budget. They didn't cut anything from the budget they proposed that year. It's just robbing Peter to pay Paul, and that's not the way to budget.
And there's one individual who voted against the budget that year, but she voted for each spending item throughout the year. So basically, she's saying, "I'm going to spend all this money, but I'm not going to pay the bills." And so we're going to say it was a 5-0 vote for that budget.
But that's why you cannot approve the projects and then vote against them.
That's it.
You have to go from the inception.
Right.
Is this project needed or not? Is this position needed or not? I mean, and I'm not saying that they haven't taken, but substantiate the need versus want. And I don't want to paint with a brush that they are totally, negligent. But negligence is one thing, irresponsibility is different.
There you go. Yeah.
So
one is almost intent.
Correct.
Yes.
But again, we want everybody to thrive in the city. The city staff, all the people who live in the city. And getting back to this major gathering of the people, communication, if it's conducted the same way in the future, people will be put off, at least the people who know the truth. And people are going to talk about the truth.
Yeah, they're going to talk about it. So.
Yeah, so again, I think the city, if they want to, we as a city to succeed together, then they have to come with a different venue to present.
We're going to talk just really briefly about who hosted this event. So I looked up on Sunbiz, Northport, it's called Northport Forward. And here is the article of incorporation. It was only filed less than 3 years ago. So this is a new group. I'm not familiar with any of the names here, but let's just briefly look. And I also have the 21 and 22 filings. So let's just really briefly go through this. March 3rd, 2020 is when they filed their article of incorporation. I'm not going to read all this. I just want to know who are the people. And here she is, Barbara Langdon. And here's this fella, David Pankow. That name's familiar.
Yeah, Mr. Pankow, he was a candidate for the city commission last year, and he withdrew after, the night of the qualification in June. It was odd the way he withdrew. I don't know. I never spoke to Mr. Pankow to ask him, but it's interesting how this incorporation happened, and I'm not going to speculate more, but it's very interesting, the association.
But I thought, I'd never heard of them before, except in 2020, and a friend of mine brought me to one of their meetings, and I said, well, who's Barbara Langdon? I didn't know who she was. And she filed to run for office in 2020, so, okay, so we know she's part of the original group, and this David Pankow. So let's just finish this document. Oh, that's it, it's one page. All right, let's go to 2021. And here it is, Northport, Florida, Inc. So I don't know if it's a nonprofit or they call themselves a nonprofit. And
yeah, I haven't looked into them. I don't know if it's a PAC or not. I don't think it's a PAC because otherwise it would be on the city. It's not on the city webpage to show that they will have to file, disclosure, financial disclosure.
As a PAC,
so I think it's a nonprofit.
Okay, well, here's 2021.
I don't want to comment.
Now, Barbara Langdon won her election, and I'm not going to go into that now. It'll be sometime in the future. She's replaced by this fellow called Brian Lincoln. And then here's Mr. Pankow again. And then here is, I don't know who this Walter, he's still the chairman, and Ginger Miranda and Carmine Miranda. Never heard of these people. This is the second year. Let's go into 2022. And this is the same group, Northport, Florida. And it's the same guy, Walter Pawlowski. Here are the two Mirandas. Here's Mr. Brian, and this guy, Lance Broad. Let me. So Victor White, I thought this was interesting to bring up who these people are that have been in this group for 2 or 3 years. Is you mentioned that, and it was also in that document, that the agenda or the second page of the flyer, but you mentioned that the people involved in Northport, Florida seem to have an understanding of what Northport Legion or Legacy is. I've never heard of it, and I've been here since 2002, never heard of Northport Legacy. So that's why I wanted to know, who are these people and why do they have knowledge that the city manager spoke on that we don't have knowledge of, the citizens?
Yeah, personally, I respect our constitution, so anybody in this country can associate and create groups and organization to promote certain ideas and directions. I'm not familiar with the group. I know that they organized back in, I think was last year, more than a year.
It was right here,
It
March
was
3rd,
at Island Walk.
2020.
Yeah, so it was about a year ago.
But not 3 years, not even 3 years ago.
Oh, when they were formed. But
Yes.
what I'm trying to say, there was another event when they organized that Island Walk.
Oh, okay.
You know, to present something.
Mm.
My perspective, and I might be wrong, it was formed kind of a reaction to another group form.
Oh, you
It
know,
was
that makes sense.
about the same time. That's my speculation.
Yeah.
And then they gel up and they are promoting, trying to promote Northport in a certain way, which is a laudable goal. However, the usage of legacy and Welland Park, it's not promoting the unity of the city and moving forward. I think they have to explain what do they mean by legacy. Is it just the Biscayne part of it, or is it the east side included? I don't know what
Never heard
legacy
of it before. I have
so,
never heard of it
so
before.
as I mentioned before, um, people in the audience, a couple of people who might be linked to the group or exposed to that. So I have never attended other than this event, and I attended the one at Island Walk about a year ago or so.
Who was the speaker at that one?
It was again the city manager at that
Peter
time.
Lear? No. That must have been right about the time they changed because
I
think
think
Mr.
just about when they changed.
Okay, so it was Mr. Fletcher again. He came in
Correct.
2021, so that makes sense.
Yeah. So
Okay.
so it was after. I think was the first time I met him at that time. So again, all our conversation, nobody has to take anything personally. It's some observation, but it's not only some observations. I try to bring the need of factual, truthful data, not. And that was my recommendation after the meeting. I went by the city manager and I explained the cause. It's a good cause, but you have to come with the right explanations to the people.
What did he say to you?
I didn't get an answer technically. So my recommendation was, go and get informed. People who put this kind of pamphlets have to have their act together in the sense that I'm not saying that everything is false,
Right.
but trying to present in a clear manner, myths and facts, and then you mix the facts with the facts contain myths themselves, then discredits the whole thing. So anytime you talk about something where you want to compare the truth with the misleading information, you have to quote the information where that comes, a study or something. The study, as I said, showed different than what was said, and then again giving explanation which are departed from the reality. It didn't inspire confidence to some of the people in the audience, those who knew. But the danger is that such misinformation takes root in the minds of the people, and that's what you get, the brainwashing. So again, the goal, it's a laudable goal to keep the city together because everybody deserves each other. But try to convince the people to do what is good for the whole city. It's a mandatory way to take the high level, not to get into the uh, in the low uh, resolution information where you cannot demonstrate that what you stated in that is true.
And I'm sitting here thinking about what you just mentioned, that this might have been this group might have been spurred on by the deannexation. This is a shock to me, and it, I'll get into my own personal opinions at another time because it's really.
Yeah, that's a speculation. It's a speculation.
Yes.
It's just coincidental to the same.
But you were
I
do remember you were trying to gather signatures when the virus came up. So it would have been like the spring
February,
of
yeah.
February of 2020. So this was made in March of 2020. So, okay. And then Barbara Langdon is the original person, and now it's still starting to make sense. But, I think we've covered a lot of bases. I'm going to actually re-listen to this again at some point and get more information, more questions to ask you because you're a font of information. I do wanted to add a couple of little, if not anecdotes, maybe anecdotal information. And when the developers first sued you all, the people in West Villages, I think the boundaries were different than the second lawsuit that they brought against you, where they changed the boundaries, and that at that time they included the state forest.
Yeah, there was there was two filings, I believe.
Yeah, and it was about the boundary
It was the
change.
boundary because the latest, the annexation was filed, I believe, I know as a matter of fact, for all lands east of
Right,
the river, west of the
west
river,
of
I'm
the
sorry.
river, and then it
And,
changed.
and it changed because it included the forest.
Okay, so my little anecdotal information is at some point, I don't know if it still is occurring in the city, when a developer for any little house, even a personal private developer, when they wanted to build, they had to mitigate the trees, the number of trees they removed. And you could mitigate that by adding to the tree fund, or you could plant a tree to add to the tree canopy someplace else. What I had found out at one point is some developers were saying, well, we're going to mitigate in Carlton Preserve, or we're going to mitigate in the state forest. So I kind of find it humorous that the developers will no longer mitigate if that program is still around, and if I'm accurate about that. I do remember having the conversation. Now the developers that are mitigating by saying, well, there's this tree in the state forest, I'm going to claim that tree to mitigate why I'm removing this tree in the city, they're going to lose that if this de-annexation goes through. And the second observation I wanted to make, I do remember after we were able to attract Mattamy Home to the city to purchase Thomas Ranch, there was a little dirt road that went from 41 down to Englewood, and it was called the Beach Road. And I do remember rezoning that road. I looked at some past rezoning to try to figure out which one it is, but it's difficult because some of it is hand-drawn. Now the city will no longer be able to boast if the de-annexation goes through, and I'm just saying this is anecdotally, they will no longer be able to boast, well, we have access to the beach, because they won't.
Well, yeah, but I don't even know if the beach road it's completed.
It
He was supposed to be there is the beach road from Inglewood going,
Yes.
yeah, but there is still a piece of land which was not owned by the district. So to connect it, there has to be some arrangement. That may never happen, even
Right. Okay.
if nothing happens with
So
the
it's still a dirt
annexation.
road, but
So again, this was not about promoting the annexation. It's about talking truth, because that's when people will listen to you. Otherwise, you lose your audience, and you want to have a good audience who would vote for your cause.
and it's the same with us. We want to make sure that we're imparting proper information, and it isn't not about the de-annexation. To me, it was about who is this group that just formed, why is Barbara Langdon involved, and this all as I kept delving into what this gathering was about. And I did make a public records request to find out, as far as I knew, if you were a private organization, if you want to rent any part of the city premises, you have to pay. Well, when I received just yesterday, or the end of February, what I received back from the clerk's office is many different set-asides, just scheduling, and there's nothing about this group. And so I had to re-request, I'm still waiting for the document, to find out, and these are the things that are important to me. why is this group not listed as reserving a room on city property? And they're allowed to bring in the city manager to speak for them. And so to me, this is might be trivial to other people, but it's important to me. It's how I connect the dots.
Yeah, definitely there is a connection there. And again, because I don't want to appear like I'm here as a referee, I do believe in our constitution. I do believe the right of the people to express themselves via referendum. And that referendum is according to the law the people here. So uh, I believe that that should be observed by the city, by the courts, and the the city should do a better job by providing real information to attract the people on their side. I am part of the city. I never said that I'm in another city. Yeah, it happens that I'm on a different zip code, but I never said that I'm not part of the city. And I do care about the city, but I also care about the Constitution.
Well, thank you, Victor, for helping me with our podcast.
Thank you.